What's up, everybody? Brandon with Strict Vision Athletics. Today, my podcast guest is Vinny Uzi. Today, we're going to talk about strength training, bodybuilding, and in one word, anabolics. You guys have asked dozens and dozens of questions on this topic. Watch this episode, and I'm sure it's going to get answered. Enjoy. Vinny, how you doing, man?
Good.
Appreciate you coming on.
Welcome.
Pleasure.
Yeah, bro. So, remind me, where did you come from? Which part of the East Coast?
Long Island, New York.
There you go. That's awesome,
You'll
man.
be able to hear from my accent as we go.
I'm excited for it. I honestly kind of got used to it. I was sort of digesting your content for the last 72 hours, and I don't even hear it now. Yeah.
Looks like you're from New York. Your hand mannerisms all over the place.
I'm all over the place. Kind of like a... Are you Italian?
For the listeners out there, his hands are all over the place more than mine. I'm half Italian, yeah.
Nice, man. That's awesome.
You know, I got a statistic. 40% of Long Island is of Italian descent. I just recently read that.
Wow.
That's a lot, right?
That's a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
30 or 40. Everyone has a vowel at their last name. It's crazy. If you don't have one, it's uncommon.
I wonder what percentage of that is like further west. I mean, it seems like a lot of the Italian,
so it's a little bit more condensed on the eastern part of Long Island, but Long Island's getting very populated.
Mm-hmm.
So even as you used to go out further out east, it was a little bit more rural, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's even getting more congested.
Wow.
It's populated everywhere. Like where I live now is almost like Queens. Queens, if you don't know, is like, it's a city. It's a, urban. It's pretty busy.
Right.
But our Nassau County used to be like a suburb. It's still a suburb, but it's getting very congested.
Were you born and raised?
I was, yes.
Very cool.
Still live there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that because same thing for us. We've born and raised in Arizona, decided to put up ship here and create a business and all that stuff.
Yes.
How was that? I mean, being from New York and in New York throughout everything that happened with COVID and all that kind of stuff. I mean, how did you own a gym at the time?
So how I got started with owning a gym and training people was I was a construction worker first for a very long time, almost 2 decades. Third generation, my whole family did it, union construction. I used to travel into the city every day, an hour in, and build buildings all day, sweating, cold, whatever it was, on the deck, getting screamed at, all that bullshit by guys I didn't like, and come back, right? And then, I fought a little competitively a little bit later in my life, and started like in my late 20s. And the gym I go to is a serious gym. There's some guys who competed professionally in the UFC and PFL, etc.
Oh, cool.
And I became very friendly with my friend Gregor Gillespie. He was up through coming ranks, incredible wrestler, Division I national champion. And as he was coming through the lower ranks, he was just winning, clipping out people. He asked me to train him, just as a friend. I started training him on Sunday. He had a social media page. He started posting all the shit. Next thing you know, kids started, and he trained kids.
Yeah.
He wanted me to train them. Next thing you know, I got a waiting list for kids to train. So being the union, if you do not know or do know how it works, there's slow times. You got to sit out and then you go back to work. So I couldn't do that anymore. I'm like, listen, man, I'm making more money training people than fucking going to work for all day. It's a 10-hour day or 12, soup to nuts.
Sure.
So the third time I came out, I got rotated out. I said, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to just fucking throw the dice and train people. And here I am, bro. It was the best thing I ever did. I started training people out of my house.
No
my
kidding.
Garage, like, yeah.
Yeah, I love
garage,
that.
Same shit.
Obviously.
And then it just expanded. I built a giant structure. Like, I kind of, not what you did, but yeah, pretty much kind of.
Similar.
And that's where I'm at right now.
That's awesome, man.
Very cool.
So at what point, I mean, how many years have you been full-time in the industry?
Probably doing this with training people. I mean, time fucking flies, man. I'm going to say 6 or 7. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I'm
man.
showing my age right now. They're going 20 years, 7. This motherfucker started then. Oh,
That's great.
Carry the one.
Did you find that in the beginning, because of your time fighting martial arts, or at least training martial arts, was that your goal in the beginning as far as strength training? Did you just want to work with that demographic,
So when I first started lifting weights, right, I was a kid. I actually started lifting weights when I was 12, right? So I wrestled in middle school, right? And I always had like a natural little Bruce Lee body. And I remember the day, man, like I fucking, I always had like natural little muscles. My dad has incredible genetics. I won a match. I took off my singlet and all the girls were like, oh shit. I'm like, oh, I fucking like this shit. I started doing push-ups and curls, right? And then from there, my dad bought my first Joe Weider set when I was like 12. I started pumping weights. I remember I'd be like, yo, where we going? We're going to hang out. I fucking do some reps of chest curls, went over there, right? Wear a tank top and shit. And then from there, I just love training. Absorb myself with the knowledge, training, nutrition at a very young age. So I've been essentially lifting weights. Maybe that's why I'm only 5'7" since I'm 12 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. I probably hit it around the time I was 15, maybe 14.
Very young.
Very young. Yeah. I don't also necessarily prescribe to the notion that if you start lifting weights young, it's going to stunt your growth. I feel like
false.
that's yeah, that is, right? I mean, it's been pretty dispelled nowadays.
I mean, if you think about logically, it's not wise to put, 225 on a 10-year-old shoulders. You could build your legs in other ways, but then compressing your spine, but there is fallacy to holding the joints back and shrinking you or making you short in stature. That's not true.
Sure. It's not limited because that, I feel like that was the narrative for a very long time, is avoid all multi-joint movements, just do body weight resistance. I don't think that's true at all. I mean, you can do weightlifting with youth, just maybe not, like you said, not heavy multi-joint movements.
Rule of thumb is that if they're old enough or physically capable to play, pretty much constructive or sports, they can do a resistance weight training program.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even as 8 years old, I mean, not go crazy, fucking 8, 9. I mean, you see now that the knowledge is out and people do it more. I was watching, through the, I'm in the wormhole of the fucking Instagram, and I see like 12-year-olds or 13-year-olds like 405 on their back.
Oh yeah. I got a kid. I got to show you. He's a friend of mine who came for some sports therapy. Her son, his name's Adonis. I believe he's 11.
It's a good name.
He's right. Isn't that a great name?
Man, how could you fail with that fucking name, right?
He does gymnastics. And this kid, I naturally, I don't think I've ever seen a youth with this type of a physique. I got to show you too. This kid's got, I think, like an 8-pack. He's a little kid, but he is strong as can be. And that was actually my background in the beginning before I ever found weights, was gymnastics. That to me,
that builds the best foundation. So wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Gable Stevenson. Gymnastics. Did you see him when he won the Division I national championship? I can't remember what it was. He did backflips off the mat.
Did you really?
After one, the guy's like 200 something pounds.
Wow.
So now the smartest thing to do if they're, the dad wants to get their kid into wrestling, coincide with the overweight training program or maybe some resistance is gymnastics along with the skill.
Yeah.
They'll build that well-rounded strength in different, different kind of like angles or balances or different smaller muscle groups. That's so important. You get strong in different, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, flexible, mobile. It's
core,
all of that.
Core movements.
Core movements, yes. You also have just such a good, you have an understanding of your spatial awareness of like where your body is and how you can move. And I mean,
Absolutely.
Wrestling's the same thing. You need to know how to slip. You need to know where to go. It's
gymnastics.
similar. Gymnastics.
Together with that is like peanut butter and jelly.
So I've got a 5-year-old, and I'm wondering, what age do you recommend getting someone started, like your kid started?
So Gregor, I asked him the same thing. My son is 6, and around me, sports have become like insane. They're starting the kids younger. When I was like, I started playing baseball when I was like 10 or 11. They have these kids in sports at like 6 and they're thinking about college. Parents are fucking crazy.
A little bit,
totally insane.
They got all the strength coaches. Yeah.
Dude, that's good for me, but they're a little insane, and some parents are delusional. I'll get onto that, right?
Yeah.
But think about it. Is a kid going to really shoot a blast double at 6? Nothing. So you're going to teach them, like, you got to make it fun. Roll.
Yeah.
Doing body movements, some gymnastics movements, doing some flips, get the body coordination down, and then you start teaching them skill at an age where you think they can comprehend it and apply it. Maybe
Absolutely.
9.
And that was 8. The thing about jiu-jitsu is like, it's a lot of technique. And I think, gymnastics, wrestling, they can have more fun. They can learn their body weight, how to shift their body weight a lot easier than something like that's super technique driven like jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's like, fucking 6 steps to like finish one thing. That's almost impossible for a 6-year-old to digest.
Yeah.
It's easier to shoot a blast double, or a high crotch than that. But gymnastics first is what I would do. Definitely.
Okay.
And you touched on fun. That's such an incredibly fundamental part of everything at such a young age, especially for something difficult. It's like the value of play you see in even like young animals, like the value of play, like with canines when they're puppies, they play. That's the way they learn to hunt. That's the way they learn to kill. And I think that's really similar with people. When you have a young, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kid, if you're going to make them go and do push-ups in the gym by themselves, that's not going to work. You got to make it fun. You got to
build an obstacle, like put boxes up. I do the hurdles and shit, right? So I'm a little too serious. I wish I was the dad that was a little more like, hey, come on, let's do that. I'm like a little too fucking like, come on, give me push-ups. Then so harder right hand, turn more. I'm like, I got to catch myself. My son's like, dude, all right, I did that 3 times. I'm done. I got to make it more fun.
Right.
But I'm good for when he's a little bit older. That's good to apply then. you know, I can't
yeah.
be both. I can't be the fun dad who does acts like a child and puts a fucking bib on my head too, and be the serious guy. I'm the serious guy.
Yeah.
You know. So, but
Which
he's
is-
actually at the age now where he's starting to get it a little bit more.
That's good. And that's also, I think it's important. It's important to have both. And I think if you are the dad that's serious, look for the coach who's maybe a little bit more fun.
Yeah.
And then vice versa.
Yeah.
If you're the dad
Yeah.
that's really fun and you're not, you're like, hey, you know, participation trophy
So
for
what
everybody.
I did,
Get a serious coach.
I do all obstacles in my backyard, right? My son and my daughter, the box, the hurdles, climb over there, throw the ball, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now my son's going to play flag football in September. So I said, come on, let's do some footwork drills. He's like, I don't want to do that. I said, you were doing it and you didn't even know it. When I built all the obstacles, have him do all the footwork drills. But he didn't realize it was fun. I said, let's go do foot, you know.
Yeah.
He was
Absolutely.
like, he looked at me like crooked. He was like, huh? Yeah.
That's great, man.
yeah.
Have you seen a shift in the demographic of people that you work with now that you've been established for 7-8 years? I mean, it's not only the youth now. I mean, you're working with. I also wanted to ask if you got into bodybuilding. It seems like a lot of your content you're talking about, you know, Dorian Yates.
That's how I started.
Was bodybuilding? Yeah,
Bodybuilding.
Please
So
talk about
lifting
that.
weights, wrestling kid, and then I started bodybuilding through high school. So I actually stopped wrestling because, you know, when I hit 9th grade, the wrestling coach was a lunatic. He's like, you know, Sunday runs like 3 miles. I'm like, that's not going to help me get jacked. I want to get jacked. You know, I grew up in an era of like getting big. It was cool. The bigger, the better. Not like this fitnessy, contoured ways, which is cool.
Sure.
It was a different look when I grew up. It was the 90s. It was the bigger, badder dude, you know?
Arnold, Lou Ferrigno.
After, like the mid, like, you know, bigger, puffier pasta, fucking bench pressing, whatever, right? Ripped sweatshirts.
Yeah, if it was the 90s, who was the big, I mean, who was your bodybuilding phenom at the time?
Flex Wheeler, I liked, or Kevin Levrone, you know,
Yeah.
those are my guys. But the look is different. It's healthier now, actually. But, you know, that was
Healthier
like,
now than it was then.
I guess to let's say 20% healthier, 30%
Okay.
healthier.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say totally healthier. It's definitely a little bit easier on the body.
I saw Chris just got asked this. I believe he was on Williamson's podcast.
Yeah, Modern Wisdom.
Yeah, he was asked.
Chris Bumstead?
Yeah, Bumstead. Yeah, he was asked if there's a healthy way to do
saw it,
bodybuilding at his level, and he basically said no. He's like, no. Anybody who's at this level doing it is sort of lying to themselves if they think what they're doing is healthy.
Yeah.
You agree with that sentiment?
I do. And there's no question to use an excessive amount of drugs, whether it be classic physique or open bodybuilding or even, you know, the board short guys, right? It's a lot of drugs on the body. So different things that make a bodybuilder a professional is there's multiple things. It's one, the genetics to be able to absorb the drugs, meaning the response, protein synthesis. And the other one that people forget about is to be able to withstand the amount of drugs.
Oh, interesting.
That goes in as well. So the amount of drugs they put their body under stress is not only the response in growing tissue, is can your body withstand that volume of hammering on the liver and the cardiac system?
Yeah.
et cetera.
I've often wondered that because, I mean, it's someone showed me a list of all the bodybuilders, I think, since like the 60s and the number of them that had cardiac arrest, stroke, all that. I mean, there's a lot of them, but it's not all of them. It's certainly not a death sentence to be at that level, but it seems like certain ones do and certain ones don't.
So I think it's this also. The education on side effects is a little bit more known or mainstream, so to speak, where people have more knowledge today than years ago, or more in tune, so to speak, right? As to even just 20 years ago. And it's also genetic factors, meaning some people may not be susceptible at all to any kind of cardiovascular disease, even with anabolic steroids. And some people, like Dallas McCarver, he died in his 20s from a massive heart attack because his widowmaker got jammed up. He probably would have died of a heart attack anyway at a certain point, maybe 56, not 26 or whatever he was. With a combination of anabolics, the overabundance and super physiological dosages, where he started to drop his HDLs into a very dangerous low depth, where all the fats and et cetera start to build up on his arterial walls. And over time, though, it wasn't balanced, meaning and it happened a lot sooner in his life than later. It would have happened anyway, probably.
So you're saying that if you have a predisposition toward these types of cardiac diseases and you do copious amounts of steroids, you essentially exacerbate your symptoms and end up with a heart attack or
Even cardiomyopathy. Cardiomyopathy is when the heart starts to enlarge. And so the heart muscle, what is it? It's a muscle. Anabolic steroids do not discriminate what kind of tissue, all right? SARMs do, but anabolic steroids don't. So for instance, you have skeletal muscle, your heart tissue is a muscle. It pumps, it works. It starts to thicken just like your triceps and quads, etc. So now the heart is supposed to do what? Pump and flood. Now the thicker and more rigid it gets, what does it do? It gets stiff. It's weakening of the heart. You think it would get stronger, but you don't want your heart to get thicker and bigger.
Right.
It becomes less able to pump
Yeah.
and push. That's cardiomyopathy.
Yeah.
Some people aren't susceptible to that. Some people get it right away. Not
Yeah.
right away, but quicker than others.
Are some people, I know they are, I don't quite remember the name of the disease, where you're born with an irregular sized heart, one that is too large for your skeletal system?
I don't know the name of that disease either, but that does happen, yes.
Yeah.
So therefore, putting heavy amounts of anabolic steroids into the body, they're already under the gun, under a dangerous situation.
Is there any form of either genetic testing or something that someone could go through even at like a young age if they were considering doing this? Because I don't know about you, but I mean, I knew that I loved bodybuilding when I was 16. I didn't foresee, just like I didn't become a professional bodybuilder, I didn't want that as a career, but I know a lot of people who did. Is there any way that someone considering doing those drugs could test to see if they're susceptible to this?
Susceptible to the heavy side effects.
Yeah, to the heavy
So
side.
one, you got to look at your family history. So if you have a family history of cardiac disease or liver cirrhosis and no one really drinks, probably not the best idea to try to become a professional bodybuilder.
Yeah.
All right. Unless you're very, very in tune and you be aware and you go for blood work like every 3 weeks and you're very diligent about the side effects that
Every
could happen.
3 weeks?
Some people are crazy.
Really?
Just say, let's be real. That's a maniac. Let's say if you went every other month.
Sure.
And you did blood work and you looked at blood pound, you looked at the main ones to look at. You make sure your cholesterol's in check, your PSAs, your liver enzymes, etc., your RBCs. Make sure it's all in check. Then you keep going. Then when something starts to go off a little kilter, then you know where to step it back or what to do.
Yeah.
That's the key. When guys start running rampant, they don't care because you'll feel good. Shit's going and you're red line, you're burning the candle at
Lifts
both
are
ends.
up, the numbers are up, everything
then,
feels like you're doing
problems are starting. I know guys that I'm like, dude, you're not burning the candle at both ends. You're blow torching the motherfucker.
That's a great analogy.
You're blow torching it. It's only a matter of time. I go, you can't. Meanwhile, I'm like, listen, motherfucker, I'm probably gonna die before him. Who the fuck knows?
Can you? I mean, because of the background and extensive knowledge you have, I mean, when you're in a gym, I mean, can you pick out the guys you think are abusing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dude.
All right.
Above anybody. Somebody be like, that guy, no way. I'd be like, I could tell by the neck, the skin, certain little distinct characteristics. And you too, you could tell. They take steroids.
Yeah.
A lot of Long Island, I think that was an article like 12 years ago that if they're surprised Long Island doesn't just tip over and fall into the water.
Because of all the meatheads.
Yeah.
It's such a stereotype,
it's
but it is
fucking
for a reason.
Stereotypes are true. Fucking meathead Long Island.
You got a lot of meatheads walking around the gym. It's
remember Ronnie from Jersey Shore?
Are you
right?
kidding? Of course. It's like the meathead 101, man.
Yeah, man.
I didn't realize that guy's only like 5'6".
Really?
Dude, I didn't put that together
till tall, and I was like, damn, bro, you are short.
Oh, did you see him?
Yeah.
Have you bumped into him?
Years ago in Miami. He was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I was like, damn, bro. Like, I never really ever feel short around them until I look at a picture. I'm like, fuck, that's fucking short, right? I'm teetering. Like, if I if I lay down for a long time, stand up, I might be 5'8" for that one fucking second, but I'm really like 5'7"-ish.
Yeah.
If I was any shorter, I'd be a midget. But that motherfucker's short.
He's a little
He's
guy.
a little guy.
He tries to get thick so he can't fit through the door, but that doesn't help you get any taller, man.
True, exactly.
So I mean, I wanted to sort of do this because, I mean, why not? You say you've got the ability to see somebody, pick out their physique and try to at least give a real educated guess on what they're on. Let's pick a couple names, and I sort of came up with these just based on some Hollywood celebs. Let's start with the obvious one, The Rock.
Okay.
What's that guy? What's that guy doing?
Okay, so excuse me.
Microphone button a little closer. Yeah.
So Dwayne Johnson. Okay.
Yeah. Pull him up. Let's see this monster. It never
I
gets
knew
old.
that was coming.
I could never get tired of seeing this dude lift weights.
So Dwayne Johnson is not just a Hollywood star; he's a brand.
Yeah.
Right. All eyes are on him. I think he has the most followers on Instagram, or second most, or whatever. Right.
Right.
He's in his 50s, or it might be 50 now. His physique looks better than ever. Granted, you have chefs. Maybe you're getting plastic surgery, Botox, etc. But physique is incredible. He does train extremely hard, and his diet is very on point. He has the chefs who make it taste good, etc. It does take a lot of discipline. He has great genetics. He is a big guy, but he's very, very lean and he's big and he grew a lot of muscle. Now, he's not a monster, actually. I know people who've met him in person. He actually, you see, TV adds a lot of that bulk and size.
Sure.
He's a big guy, but he has more of that slender big. Do I think he takes shit? Absolutely, hands down. Does he cycle up a little bit more for certain movies? Absolutely, hands down.
Pain and gain.
Do I think he takes a ton of shit? I don't. I don't think he does. I think he has good genetics. He gets his blood work done all the time. I think he trains very, very hard. His body's ability to absorb protein and synthesize it and metabolize and train. I think he has very good genetics in that sense and uses a little bit of shit and pushes the little bit of shit and uses it as a tool, not a crutch like everybody else.
I love it.
So in the picture, like the one we're looking at on the screen, what are you looking at specifically?
He definitely has some testosterone there. Year round, definitely TRT, and then ups it for certain roles, etc. And then it's hard to exactly say what compound he might add, but maybe like something more of a hardening agent, like maybe methanolone, probably not stanozol because very side effecty, but who knows with the on top blood work that he gets. They might push the fucking envelope of the red line a little bit because they're testing that guy's blood every other day probably, who knows, or every week. So you know what I'm saying?
He has a, I don't know if he has a crew with an MRI machine that follows him. He has like a doctor's physician
Exactly
that
what
goes
I'm
around with
saying.
an MRI machine that follows him around.
Exactly, that's true.
That's insane. Yeah.
See, like I was kind of thinking, like, dude, he's a brand. They're not gonna let this fucking guy die.
No, you
kidding
can't.
me? A lot of people
you
go
gotta
broke
keep
if he
you gotta
dies.
keep him looking like that forever until he. I just want to know what he looks like when he hits 80. It's very interesting. There was a piece of content you put out, I think, in the last couple weeks that I saw that I loved. It was, I believe, specifically addressing this topic on what types of drugs, because you mentioned some have side effects, they're side effecty, some aren't. You used the analogy of going to a steakhouse and getting a dinner, and you said that if you were to order your meal, testosterone would be the steak in the steakhouse dinner,
Exactly.
and then the rest would be your accompanying vegetables and all that.
Exactly.
I mean, is that a healthy long-term diet for somebody wanting to look in this category of caliber of type of person? No one will ever look like him, but if someone was trying to look a certain way, can you run TRT for the rest of your life?
Yes. TRT. So what you want to do with TRT is usually 9 times out of 10, the max dosage is 200 milligrams per, dose.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody needs that much. You want to keep your nanograms per deciliter, your level at high optimal level. Now, the level seeing anywhere between 900 to upwards of 1200. I've even seen some clinics now, what they do, they raise the envelope so they could like prescribe shit like even up to 1600.
Oh wow.
Now just say you are 1600 nanograms per deciliter, your blood levels. But as long as everything isn't offset, you're okay to a certain degree, meaning your RBCs, red blood cell count, your liver enzymes, your cholesterol, your liver
prostate.
profile. But what it is your androgen, what they don't see is this, your androgen levels become so high, even at 1600 nanograms per deciliter, you can't continuously keep running that for that long. It's going to take it's going to take a detrimental effect on your nervous system, your prostate over time. You might not see it right away, but you run that shit for 15 years.
Yeah.
Even though everything else is okay, your prostate's going to start to show its, cards.
Can you explain what androgens are, what that means?
I'm going to simplify it so people could digest.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So a non-androgenic compound, no androgens, okay, to a drug is something like oxandrolone, where a female could take it, where there's no masculinization, virilization effects. Okay? The androgenic component of a drug is that the fucking abomination, or like the Hulk that you turn red, your skin.
Right.
That's the easiest way I could have someone digest what the androgen levels are of a drug. The more androgenic a component is, doesn't always mean it's more anabolic or tissue building, so to speak. It just carries androgens, though, to a drug carry other important factors in terms of hardening, sex drive, central nervous stimulation, where other drugs that are non-androgenic carry other important factors that just strain anabolism. So, for instance, oxandrolone was a medication designed years and years ago. It was applied to old men and even children could take it because it doesn't have any estrogen conversion, which would shorten their stature.
Okay.
That's why also anabolic steroids over here, they do stunt your growth. They do stunt your growth. Some ones that convert to estrogen very early, or ones that convert to estrogen easily.
Which are androgenic. They do convert.
Certain ones, yes. Certain ones, no. So there's a wide spectrum of anabolic steroids because they all do different things. And they're trying to balance the androgenic ratio to anabolic ratio, etc. And a lot of these medications, steroids are medications,
Sure,
were discontinued because they were replaced by other medications that are not, as androgenic and cause those androgenic side effects. For instance, Drostanolone, Masteron, right? It was really designed as a cancer medication for breast cancer. Very heavy androgen, it shrank the tumor in women's breasts. Medications now, because that's what actually like Masteron does, will lower the estrogen levels in the body and shrink the tumors. Elevated estrogen levels actually elevate tumors. I go all over the place. Sorry, but I'm going to try to keep it in line.
No, I'm tracking. It's
so
good.
Now, other medications that are newer were introduced to the market that are non-androgenic, like a steroid, that are just straight anti-estrogens. And there's different levels of them: tamoxifen, anastrozole, letrozole. There's suicide inhibitors, the one that just block it at receptor site. But those replaced Masteron because they were introducing these drugs like Masteron, Drostanolone, into a female, but getting unwanted side effects like enlarged clitoris, facial hair, deepening the voice, etc. These other medications do not do that.
Gotcha. And SARMs, because I've heard a lot of the ladies talking about SARMs, asking about SARMs. Where does that fall into the spectrum?
So SARMs are, think about the word, selective androgen receptor modulator. Androgen receptor modulator. Tamoxifen, what I just said, is what's the word I'm looking for? It's an estrogen. It modulates the estrogen receptor. But anyway, so SARMs, right? So what the purpose of them? They were really first. Now, I'm not too knowledgeable about them. They were designed for osteoporosis. On the flip side, what they started to do was to build muscle tissue. But they're androgen selective, meaning they will target muscle tissue, but not your prostate. Where testosterone doesn't do that.
Testosterone will target your prostate.
Yes.
Gotcha. So is testosterone healthy for women to be on?
So now the human body, men and women, are pretty much identical as in terms of their structure and cells, etc. You get a signal when you're a fetus to either become a male or female. A clit is a penis and balls are ovaries, etc. Right? So a female does have trace and small amounts of testosterone, where a man has a much larger percentage of, and men have estrogen and women have the larger percentage. So if something goes out of balance of a female, you have to replace it with testosterone, small amounts.
Yeah. Small amounts to avoid, as you put it, the Adam's apple, the enlarging the clitoris of the hair.
Or no, to small amounts to a female of testosterone just for balance, meaning like, I'm not going to say exact like menopause, etc., because I don't know the exact hormonal balance what that might partake. But like, for instance, if she has a low sex drive or having low energy, something's off. Just like a man, if he has low energy, this now, what's wrong with your hormone panel? First, they'll look at other things, then they go to the hormone panel and see something's off. Same as a female.
Yeah. Yeah. So everything in this, because that's a lot. There's a lot to digest, a lot of different options. And it seems like to someone who is just wanting to increase their sex drive, their lifts, and look a certain way. Like, let's say I wanted to look how I look, but a little closer to Sylvester Stallone. I mean, what is the safest protocol of everything we just talked about for a man in his 30s to try and do something like that?
To look like Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, let's just use Sly. Let's use him because he's
Rocky 1 or Rocky 3.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say he went through quite a transformation between those films. Was he using just testosterone?
No, so he might have had some testosterone, small amounts. So he was not tremendous. Obviously, he wasn't a huge mass monster, but he used definitely some hardening agents. It's hard to exactly pinpoint what he was taking, but something of the hardening agent nature. Could be Winstrol stanozolol, could be Masteron that I mentioned, could be maybe some Anavar and stanozolol. Smaller amounts.
Small amounts. Just to, as you use the example with The Rock, sort of peak performance for a small window of time. And this is what I think
now,
people
not to cut you off, so people also have the misconception that if they ingest steroids, they're going to have abs and fucking look like that. He trained very, very hard.
Very hard.
Dieted his tits off to look like that.
His diet in particular, I've heard him talk
That's
about it a couple
diet.
times. It's amazing. He lives a certain way even to this day. I mean, the guy's 74, something like that. How old is Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah, he's like 75.
75, 76. He lives his life and trains. I mean, he trained with Gunnar. He's a consistent athlete his whole life. That's irreplaceable. You can't take a single drug on earth that'll replicate that. But to look the way he looked for a role, and this is, I think, what people in the commonplace don't quite conceptualize. You know, him, Chris Hemsworth, The Rock, they can look a certain way for a certain small period of time, then taper off. In order to do that, you're talking about what? I mean, testosterone and then adding 2 or 3 of those other hardening, drugs for how long? To look like him in Rocky 3.
So he probably has a little testosterone in there, okay, with other agents. But like when I said before about the dinner plate, okay, that's like a bodybuilder's usually recipe. if they want to put on tremendous amount of mass and you know, really push their physique in a cycle and put on as much muscle tissue, hardening, whatever. Now, for instance, they're not trying to look like a bodybuilder, guys. They want to look a little bit bigger, have a certain look to obtain for a role. Now, they could do stuff without testosterone. They could do just something like some Anavar and something else for short periods of time, which will put on some muscle, have very, very little external side effects, have very little hormonal shutdown, have very easy bounce back from it, and they'll get good quality gains with it and obtain a physique that's somewhat digestible. It could be natural, but you look pretty incredible. They don't necessarily need testosterone all the time. When I said testosterone being your 80% of your dish and then mashed potatoes and all that shit,
Yeah.
that's a bodybuilder's plate.
Got it.
For
Not
the
a
most person.
not a actor. You're talking about a
Depends the role.
professional.
So like, let's say Dwayne Johnson now for Pain and Gain or whatever, right? He definitely had some testosterone through something else around it. But just say Zac Efron I didn't even see the movie. He was a wrestler.
It's a wrestler movie or something. he's
Yeah,
doing.
where I mean, listen, even other movies I've seen, I'm like, dude, that guy's hard. And he's little, but like, dude, has an incredible physique.
He does.
Could he have great genetics? He does have genetics combined with maybe a little Anavar or something thrown in there for a short amount of time. And that's the way he looked with that.
He's similar, actually. Speaking of Zac Efron, he's similar built like you and me. He's very, very little. If you look up him, yeah, I don't like that. I don't know what he's doing, but I think he's got a.
I think it's just the hair.
I mean, is that real?
It's
Yeah.
That is real.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's real. He's playing. Who do you know who he's playing, Vinny? It's a professional
one of
wrestler.
you know, but who is he?
One of the WWF guys from the old school wrestling. It's
the Thunderbird. Hold on.
It's Von Erich, Kerry Von Erich.
Yeah, kind of. That's who it was.
what's his name?
Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich.
Texas.
Yeah, that's
Look
what it
him up. See, look the real guy up. Let's see how close he looks. Because I don't know who the guy is. I just know it's a wrestler. Texas. But look at him with his little
Yeah,
part.
no.
Look what he looked like when he was like 19.
High
like
School
18.
Musical.
That's ridiculous. He's
So-
a little guy.
So what my boy just pointed out, one of the distinct characteristics of starting to use anabolic testosterone with eating an abundance of calories and growing is his distended belly. Probably not growth hormone use, because that was such a short amount of time. That happens over time with excessive growth hormone use.
That's what everyone was saying. Was
no,
growth.
'cause
You don't
he's
think
not-
that's growth?
he's not-
a big
no,
distended
because
belly?
that happens over time. He did it for such a short amount of time. He's probably not using that amount of IUs to actually have that side effect. What that side effect is, the distended belly, is growth hormone initiates hyperplasia in the muscles. See, hypertrophy is this. To simplify and tell you, I'm going to start from step one. Just say you're born with 1 billion muscle cells. You never gain or lose any more muscle cells. What they do is they swell with protein synthesis and flatten out and shrink with catabolism when you stop training and eating. Fat cells the same. They flatten and swell up. That's why if you get an ab etch, you actually take away the fat cells, but you get fat elsewhere else if you start eating like cheesecake and shit, right? So what hyperplasia is the splitting and doubling of fibers. So you're actually gaining more fiber. Very dangerous if you have cancer, pre-existing cancer, but it also doesn't discriminate to just muscle tissue. It makes everything grow. It makes your fucking fingernails grow. It makes your hair grow. It makes your internal organs grow. That's why you get this belly distension with the abuse of growth hormone when you take excessive amount of international units.
Mark
One guy.
McGuire.
Guys have abs on top of their beer belly.
Yeah,
But you know what? That's not sick, because there are some guys who do very functional lifting. I always had a distended belly. I did take growth when I was younger, but I didn't do it to parameters of these guys. And what it was, I was like a power bodybuilder. Now, I was pretty strong. I wasn't like crazy strong, but pretty strong. And I have a thicker mid waist from deadlifting, squatting, and doing all that heavy basic shit for like 5 reps.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like,
Absolutely.
that's
There's
what it.
definitely something to that. You brought this up. All the CrossFit athletes, male and female, tend to have those like abs on their lower back,
Yeah.
like huge cores. And somebody was like, "What are they all on growth?" I'm like, "No, dude, it's the way they're lifting.
Exactly.
They're power
The
lifters.
functional lifting.
Yes.
Builds a big core. It's just having a jacked core.
Yeah.
Like a jacked bicep. That's exactly what it is. And the old point of growth hormone, but that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some natural CrossFit guys, and I could tell they're natural because their shoulders, and not to say they didn't touch steroids at a certain point, but for 90% of their career, they're definitely natural, and they have the distended belly. They definitely didn't take growth hormone.
Not growth hormone. No.
To initiate that kind of side effect, it's got to be excessive use.
Like, give me an example. I mean, Mark McGuire, I know, was big on growth hormone. He ended up with that type of a look. But somebody in the bodybuilding community, can you give me an example of?
So if you look at the open class now, see, years ago, they had more of that streamlined waistline look, like Flex Wheeler, Sean Ray, etc. Then started to get carried away, the open bodybuilding look, and probably like the later 90s. And then there was Ronnie Coleman And then, you know,
Jay Cutler,
yeah, they started getting. And then now today it's crazy when they're just relaxing. They almost look like pregnant.
Kai Green.
They got that huge distended
huge
belly. It's not.
bellies.
It's not a very attractive look.
No, it's not. In fact, I remember, and this is not a new topic or video for that matter, but I think it was probably a year or two ago. I remember Arnold actually coming out against the entire direction of open bodybuilding. He didn't like. He's like, I don't. You don't get it. I don't like it as a whole. It's not one athlete. I don't like the way we're judging it. I don't like the direction it's going. I don't like the body types. They look terrible.
So yeah. So at the end of the day, right? It's about being pleasing to the eye.
Aesthetic.
Aesthetic.
It's an aesthetic.
So
sport.
it's starting getting carried. The bigger, the better looking.
Oh my gosh! Look at
mass
that
model
animal.
stuff. I mean, yeah, huge, but it's not pleasing. You're like, wow, that's a circus character, but like,
Yeah.
that's why Chris Bums has said it before. That guy has the illest physique. He's jacked. I mean, that guy walks in the room, you're like, dude, that guy's fucking huge.
Oh yeah.
But he looks good in clothes. He has
And
a
he
smaller waist.
doesn't have the big.
No.
He can still vacuum.
Yeah,
That guy
listen, he
really
definitely
looks-
takes some growth, but he touches it a little bit. He probably doesn't live on it year round.
Sure. Okay,
You know?
so Chris Bumstead, you would say takes growth as
Yeah,
well.
he probably takes growth. They all take the same drugs, but just like a percentage less
Interesting.
testosterone.
They all
But they
take
still they all take the same compounds, but they just take less.
got it.
You know,
Got
and
it.
probably like they all definitely take growth hormone, but they use it for probably body composition, not so much muscular growth to get in shape for shows and etc. But they definitely don't live on it year round to initiate that side effect of the belly distension.
When did this start in the sport of bodybuilding? I mean, can you give me an example? I mean, Frank Zane comes to mind of a Mr. Olympia or a time in which this was not going on, where guys weren't taking all these pharmacies of drugs.
Who'd you say again?
Frank Zane.
Frank Zane. Oh yeah,
Frank
I
Zane.
don't know why I thought of Frank Seppi for a second. That was a guy.
You
from
remember Frank?
Outlaw.
You remember Frank Zane?
Yeah, he was actually one of the smaller, streamlined physiques.
I loved.
yeah.
Did you watch Arnold's new body?
I did not. I heard so many people watch this that they
Dude,
loved
it's
it.
really good.
Yeah.
It's the most I've enjoyed Arnold since Pumping Iron. It really is. It really is, and it kind of brought me back because, I mean, not to go into it too much, but he got a little annoying in his politics. He got a little so I kind of just drifted away. But going back and really seeing what that guy was able to accomplish in one lifetime, what he came
it's
from,
incredible.
it's incredible. It's a truly motivational story. He's an amazing man. But what he said about Frank Zane was the funniest thing ever, because he came over from Austria, and they all of this is in the documentary. They show him on stage being beat. A lot of people don't realize Frank Zane beat Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Before Arnold became Arnold, he got beat by him, and he's like, I can't believe this little shrimp just went on there and just beat me. But Arnold was puffy because he'd come from overseas. America was actually kind of the forefront of bodybuilding worldwide. Los Angeles, Hollywood. And he got beat by Frank Zane.
Was it diet, you think?
And training regimen. The coaches over here, and I am really not happy that I'm forgetting in this moment who his name was. There was one coach that was training like does this ring a bell? All the Mr. Olympias, like,
Not Joe. You thinking Joe Weider? Not Joe Weider.
actually
Joe Weider.
Joe Weider. Yeah. We're training all the and he was here, and and when he got back, see, there you go. That's where I believe Arnold beat Frank, is right there. Because
It's like, oh, I beat you.
yeah, I
I told
beat
you.
you.
I told you
Yeah,
I'm gonna beat
I
you.
told you I beat you. Well, that's what he said. He said to him when he was, I think, when Arnold came here, he was like 17 or 18 or something. And when he lost to him, he said, "I'm going to beat you."
One of you remember Lou Ferrigno?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So my friend's father was actually his training partner back in the 70s when he lived in Brooklyn. My friend's father was very strong and jacked, and they knew even back then that carbs made you fat. When you minimize the carbs, you get lean. They didn't know about long 45-minute cardio. They knew to burn and raise your heart rate and you burn calories. So what they used to do is they knew to eliminate all carbs, right? And what they did, they got in protein, whatever it was, but it wasn't always the best protein. So he had no money back at my friends. He told me they would buy bags of hot dogs,
Yeah.
right? And what else was they cheap, but like no carbs.
like just ground beef.
Yeah,
probably,
that was like quality, like
whatever
80,
you could get back then.
20, and then their cardio was they'd take laps around the block, like 3 laps, get a little sweat on, and that was how they burned their calories.
And then they
That
just
was their cardio and diet.
diet down and decrease calories
That
and
was
get
it.
closer
Yeah,
to the state.
exactly.
So, okay, I mean, it's a seamless transition to what I wanted to talk about next. So you got guys, it seems like it's become sort of a resurgence of the carnivore diet. You got Paul Saladino, Carnivore MD, and look, I've heard you talk about some stuff that's directly contrary to what he's saying, and some stuff that seems to agree. I mean, okay, carbs make you fat. There's one thing that you and he probably find yourself on common ground with. One area that seems to be a big difference between what I've seen you and him post is the topic of cholesterol. I think literally yesterday, if you go to his page, you'll see it. He was saying there's no such thing as bad cholesterol, and I've seen you say things contrary to that. What can you say on that topic?
So this is a couple things, right? Before I get back into that. He surfs 3 hours a day, right? One normal person with a regular life and a regular job and kids exactly surfs 3 hours a day. He lives in an unrealistic world where you're going to drink pasteurized milk, feed your kids raw stuff and whatever. He lives in a third world country where they don't have all these things there. They have just naturally raw stuff. He chose that by design. He did it on purpose. Now, if you're a regular person with a regular job who takes kids to soccer, Little League, etc., and you're on the go, you're going to eat as you go, and bad things are going to fall into your mouth just out of like, I'm starving, but I got to take my kid here, and the quickest thing I could shove in my mouth is whatever. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It just happens if you're a real person. This guy chills, he surfs, he smokes, whatever he does. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's easier to stay on that, and yes, it probably does work, but even if that did definitely work for certain people, there's genetic factors involved. If they just have arteriosclerosis in their family or heart disease, I'd be a little leery of doing something like that. And don't forget, I mean, he eats a lot of fruit, and fruit is sugar and spikes insulin. Mm-hmm. Different than having, high fructose, obviously, but I mean, who would just only eat fruit and red meat and whatever? I'm like, maybe this guy just smokes weed all day, has a sugar craving, and just eats steak. I have no idea. You know what I'm saying? But it's not realistic.
Where do you see then in his, because you're hitting the nail on the head. His diet is raw dairy, lean organic meat and organs, and honey, and then fruit. Where in that equation, because you can't, it seems like you really can't trust anything that the American diet, the FDA, you can't trust anything they put out. Where in his diet do you see there as a possible risk for high cholesterol? Is it the meat?
He eats tremendous amount of saturated fats and raw meat.
And
red meat.
Red meat.
He only eats red meat.
Yeah.
He doesn't brush his teeth. He doesn't wear deodorant. The guy's a lunatic. And let's make no mistake, everybody has their thing on social media, right? He's driving his supplement. This was a secondary thing. I eat like this. I do this. He's fucking, in my opinion, half full of shit because look who was partnered up with. The guy who lied about steroids.
Oh, yeah.
That fucking 5'6" juice head. And I can't believe fucking people believed it. that guy was natural. Look who his partner was.
Beat Red.
My friend, listen, I'm not going to mention my friend's name, but he saw this motherfucker.
I don't think Mark Bell did believe it. He said he wouldn't make a
wouldn't make a statement.
Yeah,
I was
going
to disagree on it. He didn't.
Well, I mean, I don't see. I mean, Joe Rogan made a statement.
Who the fuck would think he doesn't take steroids?
I don't know. It seemed pretty obvious, but he was, I mean, not only was he out there saying, no, I'm natural, he was like directly calling out people.
But now let's think about this. He's a liar. And look who his partner is.
If I'm...
Whatever.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
You know when they became not partners? When fucking he got caught. Mm-hmm. You don't think... Mm-hmm. Sure. It was a whole driver to sell their supplements. Mm-hmm. I'm going to eat like this. And I'm going to eat raw liver. Liver sales went through the fucking ceiling. Liver tastes like shit. Does it have health benefits? Yes, I'm sure. And it was all to push their supplement. Mm-hmm. Smart and genius, but lied to the public. Who knows if he's the liar, that motherfucker on a surfboard? I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't. Maybe he's eating slice of pizza going, these fucking losers. Maybe.
Taking out aside from, though, the people that are pushing it, do you... have a problem with just the tenets of the diet? I mean, if I pitch that diet to you,
works? Balance. Okay. Too much of something is no good either which way. I don't give a fuck what it is.
Okay.
You could drown yourself if you drink too much water and dilute your system and flush out all the vitamins and minerals. The motherfucker only eats red meat. Too much red meat is not good for you. I don't care what you say.
Because of your high cholesterol levels.
Could potentially, yes. He's smashing down through it. Now, if a keto diet is proven that it can be healthy for you if you have, heart disease and cardiovascular issues. Mm-hmm. That's the total fucking subtraction of carbohydrates and glycogen. Mm-hmm. But he's not doing that. But also that keto diet is not always healthy for a person with cardiovascular disease. There are some times where it's not, and it could actually cause
And you can't live in ketosis either. That's what people don't get. You can't just exist that way for your entire life. You have to go in, you have to come out, and you have to do it.
It doesn't also work as well.
It doesn't work as well. Okay, why?
Your body gets used to everything. The body's built to get accustomed to everything, no matter what your diet, training, etc. That's why you keep progressing in a certain way. Change your diet, change this, do this. Your body's always built to go and get adjusted to it, whether it's sunlight, long hair, whatever it is.
Homeostasis is what
homeostasis. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
That's why you gotta that's why actually a cheat day or cheat meal, if you're on a bodybuilding diet, whatever diet you're doing, what it does, it offsets your system He goes, holy shit, what's going on? Then you go back to it. That's what keeps it working. It's not only to satiate your mind, but also to satisfy and help your metabolism.
Boom.
Thank you, Eli. We should get you a soundboard. Get him a little sound effect thing.
Seriously, if I could drop the mic, if it wasn't attached to this, I would. That's the best statement I've heard all day.
On the topic of the Liver King specifically, and we don't even have to speculate as to what he is on. You know exactly the regimen because it got posted.
I mean, to be honest, if that is true, it's not a ton of shit. It's not.
Wait, what? What do you mean it's not that's not a ton of shit?
What he was taking, he was taking a lot of secretagogues, meaning like, so most of the muscle built that he has is what initiates, okay. This, now if you look at like the value of when you look at compounds, right? Anabolic steroids play the most percentage of a role in building muscle tissue, testosterone and other compounds. Secretagogues and growth hormone. Just say if you're like, I want to get jacked and just take growth hormone, you're going to be very disappointed because it doesn't initiate that much protein synthesis in that direction, and you're going to get a little bit of body composition change, some fat loss, some energy, joint rejuvenation, etc. But as in terms of building raw muscle tissue, nothing beats anabolic steroids. So his anabolics were not a tremendous amount. If that was true, or that was the beginning stages or whatever it was, he might have doubled it and tripled it.
Sure.
But he was taking a lot of secretagogues and he was taking a lot of growth hormones. Secretagogues meaning they're amino acids or strands of aminos or whatever they do. They pulse natural growth hormone for your anterior pituitary alongside with, I'm trying to remember, IGF-1, LR3, which is insulin growth factor.
You could probably pull it up. Can you pull up the list of admitted steroids by the Liver King? Because it was in that email that he sent to Derek. So it's definitely public knowledge at this point. Okay, but my question is then why? Why would someone, maybe because obviously, I mean, when you look at Brian Johnson before he was the Liver King, he wasn't anything special. He was sort of an average looking dude.
Seen a picture.
You never seen a picture of him?
No.
Oh man, I'm sorry, I'm throwing a lot at you here, Jake, but we got to see if we can get a picture of him before he became the Liver King. Let's see here. That looks like, I don't see the regiment. Maybe there's one where it actually shows, and then you have to show the before and after. It's ridiculous, Vinny. It's insane. The difference of him.
Right here, highlighted.
Winstrol, Deca, testosterone. I mean, that doesn't exactly say the exact. In the email, he gave the exact.
Yeah.
Like, I'm taking this much on this day. I'm taking this. And
I kind of remember that it was only like 300 milligrams of testosterone a week, 300 milligrams of nandrolone, and was small amounts of Anavar and Winstrol. So it wasn't really. So to have the physique that he has, and he actually looks pretty good, and he has very good genetics to respond to that amount of drug, as that's what it was. Giving him some credit in that direction, he has good response to the drugs.
Show the before and after, Jake, if you can. What he looked like before he became the Liver King and after. So how exactly would one know if they have a good response to drugs or not? How long would it take?
You would know relatively quick in the first cycle if you're a builder or not. You start taking testosterone. Some people put on 2 pounds. Some people put on 22. I've seen it. I've seen some people take 50 to 60 or 80 milligrams of exandrolone and put on not much weight, and they get harder and stronger. And then I've seen other individuals, they take 10 milligrams of Anavar and put on 6 pounds in a week, which is abnormal, but...
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's... Dude, dang. Is there a way? Yes, that's it. Can you clear it up, or is that... I mean, you get the idea, though. I mean, look at his legs. Look at his...
He looked like a kid there.
Yeah, he looks like...
I mean, listen, honestly, as a kid, he weight trained. He definitely has good genetics and probably didn't touch anything then. He's nice chest and arms. But that's definitely... You're not natural. Like, the hardness, the size, especially in your 40s.
Yeah.
It's harder to get bigger and harder in your 40s.
Yeah.
You peak usually in your 30s latest, and then you start to decline to a certain extent, unless you're some genetic phenom. I actually just saw a statistic that men every year after 40, your strength decreases by X%. Your explosiveness decreased by X%. Your this decreased by X%. Yeah.
Oof. After 40.
I mean, it's
39.
Yeah.
Not an exact number. Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
40. I'm 6 months over. I'm fucking it weaker. That's the number.
I would also say it also depends quite heavily on what type of an investment you have made throughout your 20s, your 30s. I mean, if you're somebody who's trained since you were 15, or in your case 8, and you've never stopped, you're probably not. You're going to mess up that curve, because
Drastically.
when they take that sort of a census, they're asking everybody. They're asking all men in their 40s. And I mean, let's be honest.
That might not be a person who weight trains consistently and diet. That might just be the average Joe.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I mean, if they're taking a statistic, the average person is terrifyingly out of shape now. I mean, it's
scary.
The obesity rate is so... I don't even know what it keeps changing. But
Ever go to Disney?
Oh, yeah.
He just went.
Dude,
Oh,
yeah.
man.
I was like, holy fuck, bro.
It's
You
rough.
can't even.
Or a cruise.
imagine.
Go on a
Oh
cruise.
my
Oh,
God.
cruise is
Yo,
rough.
the country's fat. The country is
Yeah.
not, dude, morbidly obese, and they okay. And there's nothing good to eat there. I mean, like,
No.
I mean, just something quick. Everything's fucking fried,
Yeah.
chicken
At
tenders,
Disney?
hamburger.
Yeah.
Dude, terrible.
Disney's
This
rough.
brings up a question that I had for you. If you could go back, talk to your 20-year-old self, 25-year-old self, when it comes to exercise and nutrition, what advice would you give to yourself?
Definitely cycle on and off of steroids more.
Did you just stay on it, like, kind of?
So what happened was this: I took steroids at a younger age, and I did a cycle, right? And I fucking felt great, and I took off a huge break. Did all the PC. Actually, I didn't even do PCT the first time. I didn't have the knowledge. Obviously, I didn't have the knowledge I have now at fucking 18. That's impossible. No one's like that, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Then, I crashed and went to a doctor, kickstarted my body, and then I did a couple more cycles, and I took my breaks, and I learned what PCT is. And then as I started bodybuilding in my early 20s, my breaks became from 3 months to, 12 weeks to 10 weeks to 8 weeks to 6 weeks to no weeks. So by the time I was in my mid to late 20s, there was no weeks. I was 230 pounds by the time I was 22 years old. And then when I started to hit my later 20s, I was huge. I almost looked like a cross between Odd Job and the powerlifter Anthony.
Do you have a picture of your peak?
I don't.
Oh,
Besides, it'd be like a fucking Polaroid if I had it anyway.
You should. You should. Let's see. Do you have a picture of him? Yeah, let's see. I can tell. He's like, I might
It
have a
might
picture.
be in the beginning of my gram, all the way down at the bottom. There was a side profile.
dude, I think
where
you should-
I had hair.
Pin that shit at the top, man. I would just throw that right up at the top.
I mean, it's long. It's all the way at the bottom. All the way at the bottom. The beginning gram.
That's good though. I mean, not to cut you off in the middle of your answer. You would go back and
Definitely.
would you go back and tell yourself, hey, you're not gonna be a professional bodybuilder. Don't do these steroids.
I would definitely I don't regret anything because you learn from your mistakes, etc. But I would have definitely cycled off for the simple facts of I fucked up my endocrine system early, and I would have made better gains. Think about it. Your body gets used to everything. I didn't make the same gains. Once I hit a wall, I was wall, and I was still using the same shit. You know what I'm saying? I didn't get any bigger. I didn't get any stronger. Cycling off and then cycling back on, you allow your receptors to clear out, and so you have fresh receptors, so you have the same response.
Gotcha.
You understand?
So it's a healthier way to do it.
You have to cycle, if not just for the fact of health reasons, to let your body recover, your liver, your cholesterol, etc., but for the drug to even be active
Yeah.
alone.
I just remember at one point there was a guy who
Further down. Well, we'll talk about before I even had my guy doing the gram. Oh, there's my leg right there.
I know you know who this guy is. You remember Rich Piana?
Of course.
Dude. and the way that guy would pitch, I mean, he made, I think at the beginning of his career, and he seemed to have, well, though honestly maybe he didn't spartan up because he did die, but he said he ran steroids for 10 years without stopping. He said he did cycles that never. Yeah,
That was me at I was probably 225 there.
Dang.
With hair.
With hair. That's the best part. How old were you? 25
years old.
25 years
Yeah.
old. Well, I mean, just speaking objectively, I mean, I think you look better now, man.
I look way better now.
Way
Look better with
now.
no hair, too.
Way better with no hair. Way
When I
better
was
just-
losing my hair, I was stressing so bad. If I knew what known, I would have shaved that motherfucker off a long time.
That's great. No, but I mean, I do agree with what you said. It's tough to go back and say, hey, I changed this about myself because we all learn things from our mistakes.
Yeah, that's how life is.
But
With mistakes.
But it is cool to see that you are using a large part of your platform, your coaching, your education to make sure that the next guy, hey man, don't do this way. Make sure they know.
Yeah.
If you do this, you're gonna fuck up your endocrine system. Here's what happened to me.
People don't understand that anabolic steroids are very, very strong hormones. You don't need a tremendous amount. When you're younger, you gas pedal it. You don't think about the side effects, and we all did it. We took a good amount of shit, and you don't think about really feel it when you're a kid. You're like, that shit's not going to affect me. Then when you start to get a little older, you become a little more in tune with this, and this could happen, et cetera, and you become a little bit smarter and know that these drugs are very powerful, and you don't need as much as you really did back in the day. You could use half the amount and be more diligent with your diet and training. We did diet and train, but we took the drugs too.
Yeah.
But, use them as more of a tool than a crutch, meaning this. I relied on the drug. If I came off the drug at the time, I would shrink and get smaller, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can actually consistently keep gaining. If you do the right amount and then you come off the right way, there's certain compounds that are anti-catabolic that'll hold on to muscle tissue, etc. You won't feel like Superman, but when you're off, the point is to let your body clean out and hold on to your gains, and then you ramp back up.
Yeah. It's the same way that I think they tell you to responsibly do something like TRT. I mean, you are not supposed to feel these massive surges of spikes in your lifts and all this like ups and down and up and down. That's not the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be training consistently for longevity, and you're supposed to do that again over a long period of time. You shouldn't really even like feel it when you're doing these.
Yeah.
You should just kind of stay at a nice maintained level.
Right.
And also I think refresh everyone's memory that 9.9 times out of 10, you are not going to be a competitive athlete in any. I mean, how many people in Long Island are juicing out of their gills, and they're never gonna make a dime off of doing that.
But if that's the page you want to turn to as professional bodybuilding to make money, I would be like, dude, like try to look for another avenue, because it's very, very difficult to make money in bodybuilding. There's other avenue. If you want to look sick and like, really structure and utilize your social media page, I would say that's a better avenue. You're good looking, you have that body. That's probably an easier avenue to make money than going into competitive bodybuilding and trying to make money.
Definitely.
Look what they paid. They don't even pay a lot still, like for what they make on it, but they make all the money through sponsorship and posing, whatever they do. I don't know.
And a lot of the fitness physique guys on Instagram make more money than the Mr. Olympias. I mean, a lot of those guys selling online fitness. But even if you included those people in the conversation, even if you included every online trainer, every fitness influencer, everybody, I mean, all those people are still such a small sliver of the percentage of people who are doing steroids.
Right.
Like, everybody's doing it.
Listen, man, there's a way to use steroids safely and correctly and never get hurt. If you did one cycle a year and you wanted to look good for a certain time and feel good and come off the rest of the year and let your body recover, you'll be totally fine. It's that you feel so good and euphoric and like Superman, like I said, you become smaller and you stay on, you do more, etc.
Yeah.
What I was also going to say, to go back to TRT dose, there's a lot of men right away when they start at a certain age, they look right for, my friend takes that, I'm going to the doctor and get testosterone. Their diet sucks. They don't exercise. They don't do anything to help themselves in that
Sleep.
that avenue. Sleep.
Yeah.
There's a
Stressful
big one.
job. So
Yeah.
before they start injecting themselves with shit, they should fucking change their diet, exercise, lose some fucking weight. Right there alone could help their nanograms to deciliter point shoot up like 300 to 400.
Get out in
some
the sun.
fucking sunlight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Wow.
Do some four healthy factors instead of just being lazy and shooting shit to their body, because that's not. It's going to make you feel good, but it's going to change your body. What do you think? You're going to shoot shit and fucking look great?
Yeah.
Go back to your 20s? No, you got to work with it. I also tell the guys with drugs, like, you can only do so much. You got to work with it. It's not magic in a bottle.
Oh, there's no magic bullet in this life. Nothing for
If
this.
anything, people, what they also think, this guy shoots shit and he looks like, I'm like, the guy who's willing to shoot stuff like that into his body trains that hard and diets that hard. And they say he takes it that serious. You know what I mean?
Right.
When it comes to TRT, a lot of times what I hear about the concern is like, and I don't know if it's valid or not, if you start taking TRT, that your body naturally produces less testosterone.
100%. So think about it. What happens is, how testosterone is produced in your body is a signal from your brain that comes down to your testicles and your Leydig cells. That's luteinizing hormone. I'm going to slow down. Luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. What that does, that tells the Leydig cells in your testicles to create testosterone. All right. So now what happens is, when you start to introduce artificial outside source exogenous testosterone, your body goes, I have an abundance. I don't have to make any more. So your LH and FSH start to shut off, and therefore your gonads and testicles start to shrink. Now, percentage and research shows most people are susceptible to shutting off, but there are some people that I know myself that never ever shut off. That's not common. If we look at statistical data, most people shut off.
Yeah.
So now the therapeutic thing to do in TRT clinic is hormone replacement, where it's other than testosterone. It's HRT, not TRT. These HRT clinics offer secretagogues and other peptides, thymosin, beta-5, etc. HCG or gonadorelin 2, whatever. So what that does, that's artificial LH. So what you're doing is you're overriding the shutoff signal. So you have an exogenous testosterone introduced into the body, and the LH is overriding the shutoff. So now you have your natural flow, keeping your gonads fuller, and some natural testosterone on top of with your exogenous testosterone in your body. And it kind of like what I'm saying, offsets the shutoff to a certain extent.
Got it. So in my case, I mean, I'm going to use this just because I wanted to bring this up in your opinion. I mean, for me, I take a 0.5 IU, so half of a syringe Monday and half of a syringe on Friday of test, and I also couple it with half of a syringe HCG Monday and Friday. So I take them simultaneously along with a B12 shot in the middle of the week. Is that, I mean, that is that conservative and in your opinion safe?
That's conservative. That's safe. Blood work would dictate that.
Yep.
That's the highest end of TRT, testosterone replacement, with HCG. How much HCG do you take? Do you take a 1,000 units 2 times a week, 500?
The same thing, half the vial.
Yeah, but that also depends of how many units are in the vial.
Yes, I believe it's 1,000.
So just that's what it is.
Yes.
1,000 units. So that is the highest end and the safest dose for testosterone replacement therapy. Now, blood work would dictate if you need to control your estrogen to a certain level, where you would the day following follow with maybe some estrogen control, but I'm sure you go to a doctor, blood work would dictate if you needed something to that parameter.
Is it what you're referring to is an estrogen blocker, which
Anti-estrogen, like an inostrozole.
Yeah, exactly.
Very small amount, so
tiny.
you don't need it. I would advise if you don't need it, don't take it, because it does have adverse effects on your lipid profile, your joints drying, etc. So for me, I started that shit years ago. Like, I'm going to be more dry and ripped. I wish I would have never started it, because now I can't really get away from it.
The estrogen blockers.
Yeah, other things off. So I have dry joints and etc. So I am weaning myself off, but you don't really need it. So aromatase enzyme is the enzyme in your body that converts testosterone to estrogen. The more body fat you have on your body, you're going to have more aromatase enzyme on your aromatase enzyme. You have no body fat. You have no aromatase enzyme. You have probably very, very little estrogen conversion. Therefore, you do not need any estrogen blocker or suicide inhibitor.
Sure. Why do they call it that, suicide inhibitor?
So there's different levels of estrogen blockers, right? You have tamoxifen, which blocks it at the receptor site, but leaves estrogen players in the blood floating around, which is very healthy for your cardiovascular system. Then you have anastrozole, which blocks 80-something% of it and leaves X amount percent just flowing around. Then you have something like letrozole, which is a suicide inhibitor that eliminates all of it. So correct, I'm not really sure of this fact, but a suicide inhibitor you don't want to introduce in the body, because it might eliminate estrogen altogether forever.
Yeah, the name certainly doesn't leave a lot of
comfort.
No comfort in that description. A suicide inhibitor. I don't know why, but anything with the word suicide.
So what I wanted to go back to was with HCG also, other than just leaving testosterone, your natural testosterone present in your body when you have exogenous floating around when you're shooting it, is also fertility. All right. So younger guys who are adamant about using testosterone.
What's younger? Give me a
20s.
20s. Anything in your 20s. Like
yeah.
29.
Or how about this? Anytime where you want to have a family and you don't have one yet, and they want to use steroids and testosterone, and trenbolone is definitely out.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything else? What is definitely out?
Anything that's nandrolone based has the most impact on your endocrine system. So even nandrolone based drugs like trenbolone, Deca, MPP, etc. All right. So you want to stay away from those drugs. Stuff like that's has very low androgenicity. Methanolone or oxandrolone have less of an impact on your endocrine system.
Got it.
So now testosterone's a 500 to 500 ratio of androgens to anabolic ratio. It has a very heavy impact, or could, on your fertility. HCG allows your body to hold its capability to stay fertile alongside with testosterone. That's not the rule of thumb for everybody. Some people might need more HCG, some people might need less. Some people may not need it at all, but percentage shows that you do need it along with testosterone to stay fertile. There's another drug, which is artificial FSH, which is more of like a nitrous oxide for fertility. It's HMG. So what it is when you're doing HCG, when people, they're like, been using testosterone, it's very common to go, oh my God, bro, I went to the doctor, I came back at 0. Hold on, stop the brakes, stop the testosterone. HCG, a lot in the beginning, you taper down, clomiphene citrate, tamoxifen. And then the nitrous to the finish line is HMG. Boom, that bangs the sperm motility up in the numbers, and boom, you're good to go.
Got it. So it's a fertility aid, basically.
More of, yes.
And you said, not Clomid, what did you call it?
HMG. But clomiphene citrate, that's an artificial medication that tells the pituitary to initiate LH into the body, and FSH as well.
Gotcha. So I'm a guy, for example, I've been on testosterone since the time I'm 25. I'm now 32. I want to have a family. I go in, I hit 0. I go on this. It is not, what you're saying is it's not a death sentence. You're not, like, that's not it. You can do things to
So reverse. Just say, for instance, you've been on HCG, testosterone, you go in and, the doc's like, you came back 0. You're like, what the fuck? I'm doing HCG.
And you say 0, you mean fertility count, like sperm
Just
count.
say sperm count 0,
okay.
Flat. Very common.
Yeah.
And now your bounce back So initiating your sperm production, getting the numbers into the millions, which should be is into the 100 million or 150 million, will be a lot faster than someone who never did HCG. That guy's going to take a long time.
Got it.
Probably
Yeah.
Probably
To push it back.
percentages. For someone like you who's been on top of HCG and keeping that natural flow to a certain, you're not letting that drop down into the abyss where you got to pull that motherfucker out from the depths of the sea. It's kind of right there. You can pull it back easier.
Yeah. Here's a question, just kind of off the cuff. Given what you've just said about TRT inevitably decreasing one's fertility and one's sperm count, is TRT an off-label form of male birth control?
It is percentages. So in Europe, I have this weird ability to like read shit one time and kind of absorb it. Everything else in life, no. But I read years ago that in Europe they were introducing testosterone enanthate. It's another ester for male birth control, but it's not 100% effective. It's like 82% effective. You can rely on it, but not all the time. So why that's not the case? Cypionate and enanthate are almost identical in their structure and how they work on the body. Enanthate primarily in Europe, cypionate here in America. I've known guys who've never stopped taking shit, never came off, when they come off cycle, never did it, any post, and they have kids and families, etc. That didn't, matter to them. But it does work for male birth control
But there,
most of the time.
yeah, I was going to say, but there are guys who
Yes.
will go into the doctor and they'll hit zero. You have zero sperm.
That's more common. That's why that statistic is there.
Yeah. Which, again, we should probably make the disclaimer. Don't
Rely on that.
Don't rely on this.
Use a
man.
condom.
Like, use
Still
condoms
have a backup
still.
plan.
Yeah.
Plan B.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not, it's definitely not something that can be entirely ignored, that if you are running this, it does act as an off-label use of male birth
I
control.
wouldn't totally rely on it like it's the foolproof, but it does work to a certain.
Man. Well, Vinny, this was awesome. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, ask your opinion on this type of stuff, a consultation on this type of thing, where would they go? How would they get in touch with you?
You can just message me on my gram and
On the gram?
Yeah,
Perfect. What is it? It's Vinny Uzi. How do you pronounce your last name? But
Vinny Uzi.
Vinny Uzi. I like that. It's really cool. Vinny Uzi on Instagram. You heard it here first. Well, thanks, man. That was a lot of
My
fun.
pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Cool little chat. All right. We good there, bud? Thank you guys so much for watching that episode of Becoming the 1% podcast. If you like the content and you want to see more of it, hit the like and subscribe. Activate that notification bell as well. We really appreciate it. If you guys want to see more of it, we actually have the Becoming the 1% Instagram, and the podcast is available on Spotify. For our socials, we have Strict Vision Athletics on Instagram, we have it on YouTube, and we have it on TikTok.